You know, it's funny because I usually have episodes planned out ahead of time. And then I had a manager reach out to me today, the 4th of July, 2026. And he said something simple about the brand that he transferred into in the company I worked for. And he said, Andy, it feels so good to be here. And you know what? Isn't this what we want our people to feel? Isn't this what we want people to say about their job? Not that every day is easy, not that there aren't problems, not that work doesn't stress them out, but that they feel connected to the mission, that they feel happy to contribute, that they love what they're building, love what they're part of, and they feel their work matters. Because when people feel connected to the mission, when they enjoy what they're doing, and when they feel proud to be part of something bigger than themselves, that company has a real chance to be successful. But too many times, organizations, they get caught up in creating what they call high standards while accidentally making their people feel like nothing they ever do is good enough. And there's a big difference here. High standards build people. Impossible standards break them. And when you call your director and say, hey, wow, we delivered 5 extra clients last week, and instead of hearing a congratulations like that's outstanding, great work, how did the team pull that off? You hear, yeah, you missed this secondary metric, or okay, but what happened with this other KPI? And just like that, the win disappears. The person who was excited to share progress now feels like they walked into a trap because the message they hear is not you're growing. The message they hear is, well, yeah, you're still not enough. And that right there is where leadership starts to go sideways because you can absolutely hold people to high standards and still make them feel seen. You can demand excellence and still celebrate progress. You can coach the gaps without crushing somebody. And you can expect more from people without making them feel like they're somehow less. But when leaders sit behind dashboards, laptops, looking at spreadsheets and performance reports long enough, sometimes they forget something very important. There are real human beings behind those numbers. What's real exactly? Well, how about real effort, real sacrifice, real pressure, real families, real stress, real pride about the work they're doing? And trust me, I've seen this. When those people keep giving effort, keep doing that heavy lifting, keep trying to improve, and the only response they hear is what they missed, eventually they'll stop bringing their best. Welcome to another episode of the Leading Life Podcast, where we talk practical wisdom for leadership and life. I'm your host, Andy Zook, and I've learned that leadership is about how we show up for people, how we navigate change, and how we continue growing. Right now, on today's episode, don't create the never good enough culture. You know what? This is not a leadership theory podcast. This is a take action podcast. I want to give you the tools to help you be stronger at leading, the psychology behind it, and that leadership edge to be even more effective at what you do. And before we even get into the thick of this episode, I'm going to tell you right now, if you're going to hear anything from me at all, remember this. The problem is not holding high standards. The problem is high standards delivered with low humanity. Because what we're talking about is a culture that wears people down quietly. It doesn't always look toxic on the surface. The company may have nice posters on the wall. They may talk about values. They may say they care about their people. They may have team meetings, scorecards, recognition programs, and company slogans. But underneath it all, the people feel something different. They feel like no matter what they do, it's never enough. They hit one goal, but immediately then the target moves to another. They solve one problem and immediately another one gets thrown in their face, and they go above and beyond. Instead of being thanked, they are reminded of what needs to be fixed. These are the people that stay late. They cover shifts. They take care of your clients, your customers. They coach their people. They prevent disasters that nobody even sees. And when someone above them looks at a report and says, well, why wasn't this number better? That just derails everything. Now, listen, I'm not saying numbers don't matter. Of course they do. Numbers matter, standards matter, accountability matters, performance matters. Obviously, you cannot run a healthy organization on vibes and good intentions. You have to measure what matters. You have to inspect what you expect. You have to know whether the business is winning or losing. But leadership is not just staring at numbers and responding to them. Leadership is understanding the humans who produce those numbers. And this is the part that too many people forget, because when you reduce people to metrics, you eventually lose the hearts of the people doing the actual work. And once you've lost the heart, you've lost the extra effort. You're going to start losing that creativity. You'll start to lose the loyalty. You'll lose the initiative. People may show up. They may still clock in. They may still do what is required, but they're quiet quitting. And that special thing, that ownership, that pride, that I care about this place energy, that starts to disappear. And one of the fastest ways to make it disappear is to create a culture where nothing is ever good enough. So here's the first leadership truth I want you to hear today. People need to know their effort matters. I don't care how tough someone acts. I don't care how experienced they are. I don't care how long they've been in leadership. People need to know what they are doing is being seen. They need to know that somebody noticed. Not fake praise, not participation trophies, real recognition, real appreciation, and real acknowledgement of the work. Because there is a difference between praising everything and recognizing meaningful progress. Great leaders do not lower the standard just to make people feel good, but they help people feel good enough to keep reaching for the higher standard. That's the big difference. When someone works hard, they solve a problem, they improve a process, they develop a teammate, they take care of a customer, or they hit the goal, the most important goal, they should not have to beg for recognition. They should not have to say, hey, did anybody even notice? They should not have to wonder, does this even matter? A great leader catches people doing something right, not because they're soft, not because they're afraid to coach, but because they understand that recognized behavior often gets repeated. When people feel seen, they lean in. When people feel invisible, they'll start to pull back. And sometimes leaders wonder why their team stops caring. Well, maybe they didn't stop caring all at once. Maybe they got tired of caring alone. Maybe they got tired of bringing excitement to leaders who were only met with criticism. Maybe they got tired of delivering wins that were immediately minimized. And maybe they got tired of hearing, yeah, but every time they had something worth celebrating. And if you're going to avoid any phrase, avoid yeah, but. It's deadly. Now, can you coach after a win? Absolutely. Can you say, hey, great job on this. Now let's look at what's the next opportunity? Of course. And that is leadership. But when you skip great job and go to the gap, people learn that winning doesn't matter. They learn that progress doesn't count, and they learn that the finish line is imaginary. The second truth I want you to dig into is high standards and appreciation are not opposites. Some leaders act like appreciation and accountability cannot exist in the same room. They think if they recognize the win, people will get too comfortable, or if they say good job, people will stop pushing. They think kindness creates weakness, but I could not disagree more with that. I know from working this way myself, appreciation does not weaken standards. Appreciation strengthens the person trying to meet the standard. You can say, hey, I'm proud of what you accomplished, and still say, but here's where we need to concentrate our effort now. You can say, hey, that took real effort. You can also say, let's tighten up this process now. You could say that was a strong week and still say, here's the next level. That's mature leadership. The problem is not standards. The problem is high standards delivered with low humanity. This is where the damage happens, because people do not mind being challenged when they believe the leader is for them. People do not mind being stretched when they feel supported. People do not mind being coached when they trust the intention. But after all they ever hear is criticism, correction, pressure, and disappointment, eventually they stop seeing the leader as a coach. They start seeing the leader as a threat. And when people feel threatened, they don't perform at their highest level. Leadership truth number 3, don't move the finish line without honoring the mile they just ran. One of the most frustrating things a leader can do is constantly move the finish line. You tell the team, this is the goal. They work hard. They sacrifice for it. They're grinding. They hit it. And then instead of celebration, the leadership says, well, actually now we needed something more. No, stop doing that. It destroys trust. If the goal is the goal, then honor the goal. Celebrate that goal. Recognize the effort it took to get to it. And then you could talk about the next one. But do not rob people of the win because you've already moved on mentally. I watch leaders do this all the time. The team is still catching their breath from climbing the mountain, and the leader's already pointing at the next one. So now, should we keep growing? Yes. Should we keep improving? Without question. Do we keep raising the bar? Of course, but before you point to the next mountain, take a moment to acknowledge the one that your people just climbed. That moment matters. It tells the team, hey, we see you. That counted. Your effort mattered. and we're proud of what you accomplished. And when people feel that, they're much more willing to climb again. But if they climb and climb and climb, and nobody even honors the climb, eventually they stop wanting to go up the mountain at all. They just want the day to end. And that's not leadership. That's burnout wearing a suit. Number 4, dashboards don't tell the whole story. We should know that, right? We all love data. Data is useful. Data gives clarity. Data can reveal patterns, problems, opportunities, and blind spots. But you can't live and die by it. It doesn't tell the whole story. A spreadsheet may tell you that a number was missed. It may not tell you there was 3 people that called out that day. It may not tell you the team handled a difficult customer situation with total professionalism. It may not tell you that a manager stayed late to help with a struggling employee. It may not tell you that a location was short-staffed, but still protected the guest experience. It may not tell you that the team prevented a bigger problem from happening. That is why leaders have to get close enough to the work to understand the work. I had a great CEO that I used to work for named Eric Anderson, and he always said, the further you got away from the customer experience or the client that we're helping, the dumber you became. You cannot lead everything from a laptop. You cannot understand culture through reports. This is where some leaders just get disconnected. They look at a dashboard and they think they know the whole truth. But numbers show outcomes. They don't show context, effort, obstacles. They do not show the human reality behind the performance. So yes, look at the dashboard, look at your sales numbers, but then talk to your people and ask, hey, what happened this week? What got in the way? What are you proud of? What support do you need? What did the team overcome? And what should I know that the numbers may not be showing me? That last question is power. What should I know that the numbers don't show? Because sometimes the leader above you only sees the result, but the leader close to the work knows the story. And when you understand the story, you can lead with both accountability and wisdom. All right, truth number 5, constant criticism trains people to stop trying. Here's the psychology behind this. When people repeatedly put in effort and never experience a sense of success, they begin to believe their effort doesn't matter. And that's dangerous because once a person believes effort does not matter, motivation drops, initiative drops, creativity drops. And they start thinking, why bother? I'll never get it right. They'll never be happy with my performance. It doesn't matter what we do here. That mindset is poison inside a workplace. And it usually does not come from one bad meeting. It comes from repeated experiences, repeated criticism, repeated goalpost moving, repeated lack of appreciation. They are repeated reminders that they are behind, short, lacking, missing, failing, and not getting there. And after enough of that, people just don't feel challenged. They feel defeated. And defeated people do not build cultures. Defeated people just survive. This is why leaders have to be careful with the emotional climate they create, because you are not just managing performance, you are shaping belief. You are shaping whether people believe, I can get there, or I'll never be enough to get there. Those two beliefs lead to very different workplaces. One creates growth, the other creates resignation. All right, the next truth is recognition is not fluff, it's fuel. Let's get very practical. Recognition is not some kind of fluff that people think it is. It's fuel. A simple thank you matters. A specific, I noticed what you did matters. A public, great job matters. A private, I'm proud of how you handled that. A quick text after a hard day matters. A call that starts with appreciation before correction matters. You do not need to get a giant recognition program going to make people feel valued. The best recognition is specific, not just good job, but good job with how you handled that customer. You stayed calm, you listened, you protected the relationship. I saw how your team pushed through to deliver those extra clients. That took planning, focus, and teamwork. I truly appreciate your hard work on that. Or thank you for staying late to help a new person. That is exactly the kind of leadership that strengthens this culture and our team. Be specific when you give recognition. When people feel recognized for the right behaviors, they repeat those behaviors. Recognition reinforces the culture you're trying to build. So if you want a culture of ownership, recognize ownership. If you want a culture of teamwork, recognize it. If you want a culture of customer care, recognize it. Recognize the behaviors that create the numbers. Numbers are the result, but behaviors are the engine. Truth number 7, the best leaders coach the gap without crushing spirit. Yeah. So let's be clear. This episode is not about avoiding the hard conversations. It's not about pretending everything is great. That's not leadership. Great leaders still coach, they still correct, they still confront, and they still raise expectations, but they do it in a way that preserves dignity. They do it in a way that the person stays engaged, and they do it in a way that says, I know and believe you can grow. A poor leader says, you missed this. Hey, help me understand what happened. A stronger leader says, first, I want to recognize what went well. The team delivered in a big way here. Now let's talk about the area we missed and what we can do differently next time. Same accountability, but it's going to have a completely different impact. The first one creates defensiveness. The other creates development. One makes people shrink and then the other helps people improve. People are more willing to receive correction from someone who also recognizes their contribution. So if the only time people hear from you is when something is wrong, do not be surprised when they stop answering with excitement. Don't be surprised when your call creates anxiety. That is not influence. That is fear. And fear may get short-term compliance, but it will never get long-term commitment. Okay, number 8, ask yourself, what does it feel like to be led by me? What would it feel like if you were working under you? I think this is one of the most powerful questions any leader can ask. What does it actually feel like to be on the other end of my leadership? Do people feel stronger after interacting with me? Do they feel clear about expectations? Do they feel respected? Do they feel challenged in a healthy way? Do they feel safe bringing me problems? Do they feel proud to tell me about their wins? That's a tough mirror, but good leaders are willing to look in it because leadership is not about what you produce. Leadership is about what you produce in people. So are you producing confidence or fear, ownership or compliance, energy or exhaustion? Your team will often become a reflection of the environment you create. So if that environment is always tense and critical and impossible to satisfy, do not be shocked when the team becomes quiet, guarded, and disengaged. But if the environment is clear, accountable, appreciative, and human, people will bring more of themselves to the job. All right, so here's your leadership edge for today. Do not confuse dissatisfaction with leadership. Some leaders think they are leading because they are never satisfied. They think constant pressure equals excellence. They think always pointing out what is missing makes them strong. But the best leaders know how to hold two truths at the same time. And that is we did something worth celebrating and we still have room to grow. That's the balance. Celebrate the win, coach the gap, protect the standard, value the person. That is leadership. So this week, I want you to try, before you have to correct somebody, I want you to recognize them first on what they're doing right. And before you point to the next goal, honor the last one. And before you talk about what was missed, acknowledge what was achieved. Before you look at the numbers, look at the people. And when somebody brings you a win, do not kill it with, yeah, but. I want you to pause. I want you to celebrate. I want you to ask how they did it. Let them feel that win, then lead them to the next level. Because people who feel value do not usually become lazy. No one purposely does that. They usually become more committed. People who feel seen do not usually stop trying. Instead, they'll try harder. The best cultures are not built by making people feel like nothing is good enough. They are built by helping people believe. My effort counts. I am growing here. I am part of something worth giving my best to. This is the culture that people want to be part of. Again, here's that bottom line takeaway. The problem is not that you're holding high standards. The problem is high standards delivered with a low humanity. So remember, people need to know their effort matters. High standards and appreciation are not opposites. Don't move the finish line without honoring the mile they just ran. Dashboards don't tell the whole story. Constant criticism trains people to stop trying. Recognition is not fluff, it's fuel. And the best leaders coach the gap without crushing the spirit. Listen, sometimes the lesson is simply remembering that people are human. They need clarity, they need challenge, they need accountability, but they also need encouragement. They need appreciation. They need to know they matter. So let me get back to that message I got today over this 4th of July weekend. Andy, it feels so good to be here. That is the kind of thing every leader should want to hear. Not because the workplace is perfect, not because the job is easy, not because every goal is already met, but because the person feels connected, valued, and that they are part of something meaningful. And when people feel that, they bring a different level of energy. They're going to bring their heart, their ideas, their effort, and their pride. And that is when a company becomes more than a place people work. It becomes a place that people care about. So yes, have high standards. I want you to raise that bar. I want you to expect excellence, as we should. I want you to push for growth. I want you to coach those gaps and measure what matters, but do not create a culture where nothing is ever good enough. I can't say this with more gusto, because excellence is not created by making people feel like failures. Excellence is created by helping people believe they are capable of something greater. All right, so that is today's episode, and if this podcast made a positive impact, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and I truly appreciate a quick rating or review on whatever platform you listen to me on, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming up next on the Leading Life Podcast. I'm Andy Zook. Remember, I want you to lead with purpose, live with intention, and keep becoming who you were meant to be, but most importantly, go out today and be the hero in somebody's story. All right, lead on. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.